Well, this is a tough one, huh? But I don't think it's hugely surprising after she took ill on a flight. um, Carrie Fisher passed away, 60 years old. There's a lot of outpouring about, oh, Princess Leia, Princess Leia, Princess Leia. And I get that when you have an iconic character like that, you stay, frozen in time, trapped in amber in a lot of people's minds. And that's what I found so wonderful about Carrie Fisher as a person, that she had to contend with that, and she did that publicly, and she did it with more grit than grace. And people like to use words like strength and grace and graciousness and poise when it comes to women like Carrie Fisher, but I don't think that does her justice. Every woman from the time we're little girls is trained to be gracious and poised. What Carrie Fisher did was snark. And we hear a lot about strength, but she was willing to be vulnerable in the public space in a way that few people have the guts to even attempt. Whether it's struggling with bipolar disorder, the circumstances of her childhood, addiction, or even just getting older in Hollywood. She did it with a frankness and a self-effacing honesty that allowed her to also point out flaws in other people and other structures, and have people accept it, because she was just as rough on herself, probably rougher than she was on anyone else. And to dismiss her as being strong and graceful is to do her a disservice, because we have plenty of feminine examples of that. That's what women are supposed to be. Carrie Fisher was the Hollywood icon that wasn't supposed to exist. And this should be her legacy. She's an icon that got old. And you can really only say her and Elizabeth Taylor are probably it. And yes, for many women, getting older means gaining weight. And we need to stop expecting women in their 50s to have the bodies of 20-year-olds, because it just doesn't work that way. As you age, your body changes. There are physiological reasons for that. And it's in part just the body patting itself from falls. But no one should expect to look the way at 35 you do at 25. You shouldn't expect to look like 45 the way you did at 25. And you certainly shouldn't expect someone at the age of 55 to look the way they did when they were 19 years old. And unfortunately, there's a huge pressure in the media for women to do exactly that. And I think both Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill distinguished themselves in their post-Star Wars careers in ways that are not appreciated by the mainstream. Her as a writer and a script doctor, and just, let's face it, a role model for living a productive life with profound mental illness. I mean, bipolar disorder, especially, bipolar disorder you had since you were a teenager, that your father had, and that it wasn't diagnosed until, I think it was her mid-20s that she was finally diagnosed. It was 85. So, she did all those Star Wars films with untreated bipolar disorder. That is... Can't imagine what that's like. But instead of, not letting it get in her way, she made it a part of her way. And, not letting getting older stop her. She made it a part of starting. And, she was, the media attention to her weight and her age in the lead up to The Force Awakens was sickening. And by her very existence, she questioned how the entertainment media treats people. And by treats people, mean treats them not as people. It's incredibly dehumanizing. And she didn't have to take them on. She didn't have to strike back, pardon the pun. She just existed. And she let people see how this funny, dynamic woman was dismissed because she didn't look the way a lot of parasitic entertainment writers wanted her to look, because they like their dance monkey dance entertainment mind slaves to look ideally visually appealing for them. And that is the really toxic relationship that the entertainment media has with celebrities, being that close to celebrity and not being a celebrity yourself. People get really nasty. And the reality is when you're a writer, when you're doing things that require you to stay still and put your thoughts down, on paper or into a computer for long periods of time, yeah, you're not out there moving around. And so you're not going to look like someone who does. You're not going to look athletic because you're not. And people who think for a living should not be expected to look the same way as people who move for a living. Let's just, your bodies do what they need to do, what you need to make them do. And I'm sure a lot is going to be made of, the fact that she only made it to 60. And I'm sure, addiction had something to do with weakening the heart. But sometimes things just happen. And I think the focus shouldn't be, it was too soon. She was taken from us too soon. I think what we should pay respect to is the fact that she gave more than most people in 2/3 of the time a lot of people get. Many people live to 90 and don't give the world what, Carrie Fisher did. And who can ask for better from a person than that? Do as much, if not more, than anybody else, and do it in 2/3 of the time. And she defined science fiction up until the present day, the role of women in science fiction. And yes, there was a lot of borrowing, but she is the archetype for modern science fiction women. Her and probably Sigourney Weaver in Aliens. And that's really something, and nobody asked for that. But the fact that there is, there is an increased license for aggression and dynamism and snark in women in science fiction in a way that other genres, expect them to be weepy victims all the time. I think that really goes into who she was and just what a force she was. And, she says that she developed this huge personality because of living with mental illness, but I think you gotta have that. You can't fake that. And I think the message to women of all ages that Carrie Fisher embodied is, don't be afraid to be big. Don't be afraid to live big, to sound big, to look big. Take up space. Make noise. Be noticeable. That's the lesson of Carrie Fisher.